I will now call to order. Good evening. I will now call to order the November 9th, 2023 City of South Pasadena Library Board of Trustees meeting. Administrative Secretary Sean Fay, please call the roll.
Bianca Richards.
Present.
Kenneth Gross.
Here.
Edward Pearson.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
And obviously, Dean is not here, so I'm, as the vice president, I'm acting as the board president tonight. Okay, moving along here. In an effort to better manage the business on the agenda, general public comment will be limited to 30 minutes at the beginning of the agenda. If there are speakers remaining in the queue, thank you, they will be heard at the end of the meeting. If you would like to make general public comment for items not listed on the agenda and are under the purview of the Library Board of Trustees, please now raise your hand on Zoom or turn in a speaker card. Mr. Fay, let's give speakers a few seconds to raise their hand. And Mr. Fay, may I have a count of speakers for general public? The clerk will maintain a list of speakers who are in the queue.
Hello, Michelle. Did you want to make a public comment? Michelle's microphone and camera are off.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, I'm here to observe for a school class.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Oh, sure.
Great, that's nice that you're observing. And I think we have one. Yeah.
Okay, Sally Kilby, just trying to keep up with some library things while I'm not on any of these boards, but probably you all know that Senator Portantino helped pass or initiated this sales tax revenues can be diverted from use and other sales tax accounts to repair of historic properties. So I was thinking of you with the library community room and the intrusion of water, and a lot of money is going to go to the Rose Bowl, just that type of thing. And then, if you remember during the library tax, we had this threat early on of the California Business Roundtable, Chamber of Commerce. Well, it's going to be probably coming back in 2024. But I don't know what happened, but the government was trying to get the Supreme Court to take it off.
I don't think they've taken action yet.
No, probably
I've been
haven't.
watching.
But I was trying to read through it and see what it really means for us. And it says that special taxes will be require two-thirds majority, but we've always had that. But it seems like in the interim between our last tax initiative and now, there was a judgment in Upland that made it possible to pass special tax with just a majority. So this will put back to 2/3, but we've been used to that anyway. But anyway, so that'll be coming up. You know, I think you mentioned, or someone mentioned at your event, your election, your
Open house.
town hall, that, well, the only thing we can do is put a bond, on the ballot for any kind of library, renovation or repair. But anyway, so it's just some things that have come across.
Thank you, Sally, for
Okay.
always
Okay.
participating. Thank you very much.
Well, can I just say that
Yeah.
we are watching,
Yeah.
and the city attorney is aware. My understanding is that any tax adopted after, I think it's January 1st, 2022, 2022, that didn't get adopted using the requirements that are in this new bill would have to be done over, but we may
did,
have done it all the
yeah.
right way. So,
Okay.
but we're on it and the city's on it.
Any other public comment on Zoom or? Okay, then I will now declare the public comment period closed. Okay, on to presentations. We are pleased to introduce Library Director Kathy Billings to provide an update about her experience attending the Library Journal Design Institute.
So I have a little PowerPoint. This isn't terribly long, so don't panic. I just have to share my screen.
I was gonna say, you may wanna,
You can see.
This is what you were telling us last month, right?
Yeah, this happened in September.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I explained that the library journal is obviously a journal for the library profession, and they do a lot of different kinds of professional development. And one of the things that they do is around, library design, building new libraries. There's actually a class, or at least a little webinar coming up maybe next week that I'm going to send to you guys that you might be interested in. I think it's free. This was not free, but it was subsidized for the most part by the people that participated and sponsored it. But it was a great opportunity to go and be with like 100 other library professionals who are in the process of looking at new buildings, who are doing renovations, that are all trying to learn. There were 4 presentations, and I'm going to go through those just briefly with some of the kind of key points that I had noted. But I also wanted to just show you the architects that were there. So there were, I think, 5 different firms were there. I think that this is the one, I think Anderson Brule is doing Altadena. And they have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, have an office in Claremont. So they're kind of local-ish. So that was one of the architects that was there. This is another. I was interested to see that they've worked on a number of Carnegie libraries. I don't know that they did any kind of integrating a Carnegie building with a modern building, but at least they've got that experience. So that was interesting to see. Group 4 architecture was also there. They know a lot about early childhood. You can see in that top left, about what's important in those spaces. Nolan Tam, which is California based. Well, they have offices in Seattle too, but very well known, have done many libraries in California. And they did Hayward, which is the host library that we were at their library, and it was beautiful. I have hundreds of pictures and I didn't put them into the slideshow, but I'm willing to share them if anyone wants to look at them. And then this is the last firm. I think they've done fewer libraries. I think this is actually all the same library, but I did think it was kind of warm, which I feel like in our community, it's hard to picture us with some super modern thing in the middle of this residential neighborhood. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So those were the 5 that were there, and they all, different people from the firms participated in these different sessions and talked. So it was really interesting. So 4 sessions. The first one was setting the vision, engagement strategies, and scope. So one point that they made is that when you're doing a project like this, it's a great opportunity to really stop and think about workflows and staff duties and how we do things. Lots of times in libraries, people do things the same way they've always done things. And maybe some people are resistant to change, but they really emphasize that this is an opportunity to think about your services and your service models so that you can design for it and design for flexibility too, because the service model may change. They talked a little bit about cost and what we could expect to get from, like a master site plan or an initial kind of study. They said a good consultant architect should be able to give you a rough estimate and sort of an amount per square foot. That's how they think about it. They reminded us that when you're thinking of the cost, you have to remember everything. You have to remember you need a temporary facility, you need movers to move the materials. There's a lot of things, and a lot of libraries, they've added so much shelf space that they need $100,000 to buy new materials to fill their shelves. We have a lot of stuff already to fill the shelves, but so that's something that I guess, obviously, you have to think of all these things, but it was just helpful to kind of have them mention that. Some words of wisdom. A lot of people had different things to say, but I think the message that kept coming across was sort of getting all the people on the same page very early and making sure that everyone is agreed on what the objective is and what is the vision and all, and that everyone can communicate that consistently. And they talked about politics, talked a lot about friends groups, because in some places that can be very political, you know, there's strong feelings and, you know, but they're your biggest advocate. So it was interesting. But again, I think the thinking is that you need to be proactive, you need to plan your plan, you know, you really need to have a roadmap about how you're going to go about all of this. And if there's a constituency or a group that is skeptical of this project or, you know, isn't quite on board, that's who you should get and, you know, get connected with them early on and start to get that feedback and conversation going with them. And this came up again later, but the idea that, you know, all of this engagement process, you know, you're meeting with community, people are telling you what they want, and you just want to kind of keep a loop and keep a good record of everything so that when they come to the second meeting and you can tell them, okay, what we heard was this, and here's what we're presenting today, and here's why it may or may not, you know, look like what you asked us for. So it's sort of this continuous feedback loop. So that's what I made some notes of from that. They talked about safe and sustainable libraries, and it was sort of a combination of the idea of like inclusivity and like safety, physical safety. So talking a lot about being inclusive and having a facility, for example, that is welcoming to different groups. So they talked about neurodiverse people who struggle with bright lighting or struggle with loud noises, that you need to think about that and plan spaces that those people can use. At Hayward in the teen room, they have these great like little kind of cubbies, little rooms that were like all along one wall, and the lights were dimmable. So the teens could go in there and dim their lights, and just things to think about, right? That there's a lot of constituents that we should take into account. Obviously, the issue of homelessness is an issue, and nobody told us how to solve that. But you know, obviously, it's going to come into play when you're designing and thinking about what services you're going to be offering. The indoor-outdoor connection was something that a lot of them felt strongly is important to have. And then, of course, people come to libraries because they feel safe. You know, we have parents who leave their little kids here because they think it's a safe place. They'll leave a little kid, which they're not supposed to do. But I think that people think libraries are safe. And so we want to make sure people are safe. And I think that that's sort of where we are now with there's some groups of people that don't feel comfortable or don't feel safe because they're worried about people with mental illness or whatever. So just something to think about, right? We want people to feel safe here. And so we have to plan for that somehow. That was on that topic. And of course, they talked about sustainability, like LEED buildings and all that, but that's kind of a whole separate thing. This was interesting because they were talking about joint use facilities. So like what we've been talking about, that, you know, if we're doing something with community services and we're trying to address some needs that they have for seniors or needs that they have for community services. A lot of these examples that people talked about were sometimes school libraries, like school facilities with a library that's a public library. And I know Glendale did that and it didn't work. And the person that talked about it in this case also said it didn't work. So basically the message was, make sure you know why you want to partner. And if it's just to save money, that's not a good reason. It has to be about the services that you're providing and that's why you're partnering. But you have to make sure that the other entities, you know, why are we doing this matches why we're doing this. So bottom line is hopefully we all have the same goal, which is, you know, to serve our community and give them what they need. Again, some of the stuff about intergenerational use, different kinds of people. When you're designing, are you thinking about that? You know, do you want the noisy children's room too close to the, all of these kinds of things. So basically, I think it's just thinking a lot about your users and what kind of space is best and how that can be arranged. This issue of clearly determining who has access to what space when. So think about in the context of, let's say we shared a lobby with a senior center and that was like the main kind of entry foyer. But the senior center is closed at certain times and we're open at these other times. And what if the bathrooms are in there? And, nighttime use, renters. So that was something to think about too. And I know in Glendale, that's kind of what happened with the school public library partnership. It was like, well, when is the public using it? When's the school using it? Well, now we have to lock the door because, they didn't have that figured out in advance. So something to think about also, which obviously we would do, but thinking about kind of everything happening around facilities. So in this community, right, we have people driving, we have people walking, our kids getting dropped off, or they coming to the book drop, all of that stuff. Somebody said where you place the bathrooms can make or break a facility, which was interesting. So hopefully there's an architect out there that can make sure we don't do that. And then they talked a little bit about funding, and they had mentioned that Spokane, Washington had a measure that passed that they called Library and Parks for All. So they basically put it all on the same measure and raised money to deal with their community services park stuff and their library. And then I think this is the last category, little session they had. Evolving literacies, designing for creation, engagement, and inclusion. They really emphasized the idea that you're planning for this to last, right? 50 years, 75 years, 100 years. I mean, it's hard to even imagine that, but that's how you're thinking about it. And so flexibility in terms of the space and how it can be used is really important, because you need to meet your needs that you know of now, but you need to try to have enough flexibility so that in the future you can change those needs. There was a whole conversation about AI and how that might change libraries and what that's going to look like. So it was very interesting. And again, back to the idea that the goal has to be very clear and all the people that are involved are using the same language. So I'm not using library lingo, and community services isn't using, whatever senior services lingo, that we all find kind of common ways of talking about our objectives. Someone talked about the designing for the early literacy. So like children's room and early literacy. They said a really good little rubric to use is the Public Library Association's Every Child Ready to Read effort, which has these 5 components: talk, sing, read, write, play. So when you're designing, you want to make sure your furniture, your design allows for all of those activities. And that's the package for early literacy. And they showed some really beautiful examples of amazing children's library spaces. Again, this concept of, the bottom thing, it's a complex process to gather all this input and synthesize it. And basically you have all these community ideas and aspirations. You have staff aspirations and ideas, and then somehow you have to squeeze that back into the size you have and the money that you have. So they just really emphasize this kind of iterative process where you're in like a feedback loop with your community about the project. And then they talked a little bit about the tweens, which was interesting because Barb had just said something about this to me, like tweens, they're not quite teens yet, right? They have their own needs and they're too big for the children's room. Our tweens go to our children's room because that's all we have. But they really think, the architects really recommended that you do design space intentionally for them, but that it's adjacent to the teens. Maybe the Hayward had a really beautiful space and it was like frosted, like glass with etched designs that kids had drawn. So they were adjacent to the teens, but they were separate and you could still see what was going on in there. So they weren't off on their own. So those are some of the things that struck me. It was really a lot of information. I have like 5 pages of notes, and it was very informational. I don't know how to really share it any more than just this kind of overview, but if you are interested in seeing some of the pictures from Hayward or some of the pictures that are like, oh, here's what was cool about Hayward. It was beautiful. It was really, really nice. It had a lot of really good design elements and just was really a nice space. So I can, put a little slideshow together of some of those things. And that too, I mean, we're gonna go out and visit libraries, but we're not gonna visit Hayward, so.
When was that one completed?
They actually completed it right before the pandemic, so, but then nobody used it for a year and a half because it was closed. So they're really sort of now having their like launch in a way because it looks pristine, it looks brand new. So yeah, it opened in 2019, then the pandemic came and now they're kind of finally launching and people are coming back.
And where's the library, Hayward, like in adjacent to like the downtown?
It's right in the
Right.
downtown. It's right next to, that big Founders Park.
Uh-huh.
It's next to the Founders
Okay,
Park.
yeah.
They've really actually kind of they've kind of connected those two spaces. There's windows that look out over, and some of the trees, Founders Park is their very old park. It has these gigantic trees. They had some of the trees needed to come down, so they made tables out of those trees. So, some of the tables in the libraries are, naturally shaped and are from those trees. So they had lots of little ideas about how to make your space specific to your community.
That was gonna be my question. So are these brand new builds from the ground up, not encompassing, older buildings? Are they new sites or are they?
I mean, it's both
It's both.
examples, all of these architects have many examples. They have some where they've only done a master plan or they've done a feasibility study, or they've done a brand new library, or they've renovated an old library. Like it's all over the place. But I think like sometimes when I'm looking at pictures, there's this sort of generic like library look. I don't know. It pops out at me. And I think you want to try to make sure your library is special to you and your people that use it and your community. So whatever that means, whether it's in the materials you're using or I mean, I don't know exactly what it means, but it's definitely something that I've thought about a lot in Hayward because they really did a lot to make it look different, like it was their library.
No, I think space and place is it's very connected. And I think that's why, like, when you ask people about South Pasadena, they always talk about the place, so it's got a feel to it. So yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
This would have to have some kind of a feel to it.
Yeah.
So this was wonderful, Kathy. This was a good summary. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. They had lots of ideas and mainly it was just great to meet all these firms and have an opportunity to talk to them a little bit and tell them a little bit about our library. I think 2 of them have come since to visit here and look around the library and, we've talked a little bit about what we've got going on here. So yeah, I think that it was good kind of foundational information that will help us. And I will send you guys the link to this class. I saw the email, but I didn't get to read it closely, but I thought, oh, if that's short and free, you might want to do it.
Yeah, and I would be interested in pictures. I'm a real visual person, so I love pictures.
Yeah, I'll have to put my pictures. I could put them like in a Google or something, then just send you guys the link to them. I just have to winnow them down a little because there's kind of a lot. We visited 2 libraries on that trip. We visited a county branch library which was smaller than Hayward, and then we visited Hayward. So the county branch library was new also. And so I have pictures of that one as well. Yeah. So that's all I have with that. Oh, I had to make that go away. Sorry.
All right, and on to our action discussions. Does anyone have any reordering or additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, we will continue with the next item. Approval of the minutes. Did you guys all get a chance to look at the minutes from October 12th? Do we have any public comment on this item? Can I get a motion then to,
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting. I'll second that.
thanks Ed, thanks Kenny. Okay, we have a motion and second. Staff clerk, please take roll.
Bianca Richards,
Yes.
Edward Pearson,
Yes.
Kenneth Gross.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. And our next item, we gotta do our nominating committee.
I have to redeem myself.
I know, we'll have to, yes. Kenny and I kind of goofed last year. So it's recommended that the library board of trustees, we've got to appoint 2 trustees to the nominating committee, which will be responsible for presenting a proposed slate of officers at the January 24 board of trustees meeting. But are we all returning? Well, when is my term up?
You,
Yeah, I meant to call Sean up today, and I forgot. Cause I know, obviously Ed and Kenny,
At least one more year.
Oh, yeah, I just looked them up, and so, yeah, it does tell your term. There, I actually was just.
okay,
Oh, Bianca's another.
Yeah. one more year.
yeah, that's what I thought. I
Okay, one
thought,
more year.
and so Dean, I have not asked Dean, but that's, the nominating committee can ask, does he intend to do a second 3-year term?
Oh,
So Dean will need to be reappointed by the mayor
by the mayor.
in, yeah,
But remember
And
this
usually-
happened, isn't this what happened to us last year, Kenny? Some of us had to be reappointed.
Right,
And
I have
that's
to
what,
be reappointed.
yeah, so what,
they dropped the ball a little bit, I think,
yes,
didn't they?
and then
Yeah.
we didn't get to do the nominating.
I don't think that will happen this year, but I'll make sure it doesn't. I'll talk to the city clerk and find out when they're gonna reach out, but you guys are welcome to, whoever is on the nominating committee is welcome to just ask Dean too. Does he want to serve another 3 years? But I'll ask him as well. But he cannot be president again. So if he is reappointed, you do need to nominate someone for president.
Just to find out he's gonna get reappointed. So he's over at 12/31/23. Okay. No, it's got one more year. 24. All right, so, well, so are we ready to move on this tonight?
You just need to,
You pick two
you just need to pick
I
two
just need to
people.
pick 2 people?
I asked Annie, if she would be willing and she didn't answer, but since she's not here, I think we can told her.
Kenny, did you wanna?
Yeah, I'll do it, so I can make up.
Okay, so Kenny,
Follow my sword, so.
I don't mind doing it. I mean, yeah, we kind of will get more on top of it. I can do it again too, so.
I mean, it's pretty simple since
Yeah.
we're really only looking for
Yeah.
3, who's gonna do
Unless
what.
Ed,
So take much time. I think it'd be fine if you guys would.
okay, all right, so then can I get them? Well, okay, so then, Kenny and Bianca will be,
The nominating committee.
Nominate me,
will
yeah.
be the nominating.
Okay,
We'll be on we'll do the nominating, and then I will reach out to Dean and, remind him about if he's gonna be reappointed.
Yeah. that's
When do, in city council, when does that happen in?
So, I think the mayor and the mayor pro tem elections are in December. I don't know if it's the
Okay.
first or the second meeting in December. And then the new mayor has to take a little time to figure out the appointments. I think it was a little later
Yes,
last
it
year.
was.
Well, I also am not clear on whether they're trying to kind of change that time frame to fiscal year. Because now they do the commission congress in June, like we've always appointed in January. Anyway, I'm not 100%
Yeah, all the
clear.
commissioner
so-
terms are calendar year.
Okay.
But I don't, I mean, I haven't heard anything else, but I don't know.
But can the mayor appoint earlier if he wants to?
The mayor,
If there are vacancies.
there are
Oh, if there's
vacancies.
vacancies, there could be
Yes.
appointing now. if you wanted.
I think I don't think so.
No, they
I
do
don't-
one big
They do
Okay,
one
thing
big
in the
one.
new.
Yeah.
Because there'll be lots of vacancies. They only do mid-year appointments if there's somebody resigned and they have a vacancy they need to fill, but anybody that's like finish December
Yeah.
2023, there'll be a bunch of people and those will all have to be filled. And that will happen in the beginning of the new calendar year.
All right, so, we have any public comment for this items? And then, so then can I get a motion that, Kenny and Bianca will be on the, will be on the nominating.
Do we need a
or
motion?
will be the nominating.
I don't think you do. I
You
think
appoint President Flynn.
it's, yeah, I don't think you need to.
Alright. Then, okay, we'll do it this time, Kenny.
We'll put a vote on this too.
Okay, item number 6, library operations update, communications.
So obviously you have this information and you're welcome to look through it. If you have questions, you can let me know. I do want to let you know that the person that we made the offer to for the children's librarian position, she did accept. They accepted. She uses they, them pronouns. And I have to get used to that. But they accepted, they passed their background check and they're starting on December 4th. Their name is Bree Taylor and we're really excited. I think that they're going to be a great addition to the team. They're very passionate about libraries, children's libraries, literature, equity, access, kind of really like what a real new and up and coming librarian should be excited about.
What was the first name?
Briona, but they go by Bree, B-R-E. And her background, she's coming from Seattle, where she was a private school librarian. So like K through 9, I think. And great references, you know, the people that have worked with her, loved her. So very excited, December 4th.
Be soon.
The other thing I guess that I would mention is related to the strategic plan. We're still slowly working on, you know, trying to make sure we keep that moving and keep working on our goals and our projects. We are going to, well, we have started an equity, diversity and inclusion staff committee. So Olivia, that's something we've wanted to do and it's not specified in the strategic plan, but it's a piece of that stuff. I mean, we talk a lot about equity and inclusion, diversity and strategic plan. So we wanted to do a staff committee and Olivia wrote a little proposal for what that might look like. So we've recruited, I think 6 or 7 people, a couple of full-timers, 4 or 5 part-timers, which is, I think, really exciting because sometimes part-timers have a lot to offer, but they have other jobs and they're busy, but I was excited that they wanted to be part of this. So part of what they're going to be doing is thinking about ways of engaging all the staff on these topics, maybe learning some new things that we don't know, but they're also going to take on some special kind of projects. So one of those is to start doing some research about a land acknowledgement statement that we would, you know, recognize the indigenous people whose land this is that we now live and work on. So that's a whole political delicate thing, obviously, but we kind of want to start doing some research and looking at the best practices. And I've talked to the city manager about it a little bit and community development about it a little bit. So ultimately that'll be something that happens, I think, at a city council level, at a higher level, but I think that our team is going to start thinking about that. Another thing that they probably will take on is assessing our collection, which is something I don't think I asked for funding for that this year, but next year I will ask for that. There are products out there that will kind of analyze your collection for a variety of different diversity categories. You know, do you have women authors, women characters? Do you have male authors? Do you have male main characters? You know, all of this kind of stuff. And that's something we'd like to do. It's actually interesting. You know, I tend to think that our collection is pretty diverse and the Friends gave us money last year and looks like will next year to kind of bump up some of our diversity collections, which is often, you know, new authors that, you know, we have to buy Stephen King, so we can't afford some up and coming, under 35 author. So we're building that stuff up, but like our summer reading program book lists, we ran a couple of those through an analysis tool. And it was like a lot of ladies, a lot of like women characters, women protagonists, and not as many men. So maybe our bias was showing a little bit. So we revised those book lists. So it's really an interesting exercise. I don't think we'll be shocked and find that we're, a terrible, unwelcoming library, but I think that it'll be interesting to do that. So they'll take on something like that, and other things as they come up. So we're excited to have that kick off. Olivia, just to remind everybody, is going out on maternity leave.
Oh,
Yeah.
December 9th through March. We are trying to bring on board a retired annuitant. I don't know if you guys know Marilyn Taniguchi. She lives here in South Pass, I think. She retired from Beverly Hills. So we're trying to bring her on January to March to help us while Olivia is out, because it is going to be a challenge to, keep everything going with being down one person. But that's really all my news. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. The state report, which every year, which I try to do it on time, and every year I forget how much time it takes and how many things you start to look at it and go, well, that can't be right. We need to check that number. And then you go to your financial stuff and something's weird there. It's like a can of worms. So that's been taking a lot of time for a bunch of different staff. Like Alexis has statistics. She's responsible for gathering. Sean did a lot of gathering of the statistics, and I'm supposed to just be kind of checking what's there and making sure everything's good. But that's taken a lot of time. So that'll be good once we get that done, because that's always exciting too, because then we can look at that data once they process it and look at ourselves compared to other libraries in the state, which is fun to do. So that's what I have for library operations.
All right, well, thank you. And then moving on to communications. The board communications, any? Ed, Kenny?
No, I don't really have anything. I enjoyed Kathy's presentation. It was wonderful. Yeah.
I found something, Fairfax County, Virginia has famous library quotes. And among them, the library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its folk. It is a never failing spring in the desert. That's Andrew Carnegie.
I like it.
That's very
You
nice.
said that's Fairfax?
Fairfax County, Virginia, yeah.
I like
Thank
that.
you, Ed, that's very nice. Yeah. And I have no comments. City council liaison.
The only thing I'm gonna say is that, last meeting we talked about getting the patio
Yeah.
furniture. And I've asked a couple times, including I texted Armene again to remind her this week, and she said she was talking to Katrina and Ted. I think it's just a matter of moving it up on their priority list.
The status, I can tell you the status, which is that they got the bid for the work. It's a little more than we expected. I let them know how much money we have in our budget. And I talked to Ted briefly, and I think they can find the rest of the money in their budget. If they can't, we could dip into Mullen or Romine funds if we wanted to do that. So again, I think it's just a capacity issue, but at least they've got the quote for the work, and we just now need to finalize the contract and do it.
How much is it, do you know?
Like 20,000.
20,000 more that you need, or just 20,000 total?
No, 20,000 for the installation
Oh,
work.
okay.
I think it's because of the masonry and because of how deep they have to go to.
And what were they expecting? What was the?
Well, I kind of made up in my head. I think I maybe talked to somebody about it years ago and what it might cost. I was thinking like $14,000 or something. So yeah.
What were we waiting for the city then if we were needed a contract with an outside contractor anyway?
Well, because Public Works is in charge of those types of contracts.
Oh, but they're not doing any of the work. That's not that we're waiting for them to do. the
No,
work.
they don't have enough staff. I mean, we
Okay.
kind of determined initially early on that our city, street staff who might have the skill set wouldn't have the capacity to do it. So that was part of what takes time is we have to go out and get bids. And then review them and then
Do you have to take the lowest bid? Is that a city requirement? Didn't it used to be that?
I
or
think
is that-
there's some
I think
different.
if there's personal services and professional services, there's certain things that you don't have to take the lowest bid. Okay. I don't know if this would want to be one of those.
And I don't know if they got multiple bids. I mean, you're supposed to try to get three, at this price point. I think you have to have three, but again, if nobody responds to
Right.
your,
For your RFP?
yeah, then you don't, you only got one, you got one. So we'll see. I mean, and Armini knows, and I've talked to her
Yeah.
and I am, encouraged that we got the bid and, but I will
Yeah, we gotta keep at that.
poking them.
And then the other thing, though, I was gonna follow up, that's with the fund, so I did talk to John Down,
Oh.
the instructor, so the 2.7 million is being accounted for, it's allocated and it's separate, it's got its own fund
Yeah.
now. And I think we talked about whether or not it accrues interest, which it does, so it will share in the overall interest gained by the whole city portfolio, it's all in proportion.
But,
So-
but
Also, it's invested with city funds, even though
Correct.
it's
It's more just an accounting,
Right,
it's,
separate,
it's
right.
more like
Okay.
the cash is all together, but it's
Got
it's accounted for separately.
which is interesting because the Mullen and Romine funds do not grow based on interest income. They are flat. So
Oh,
this,
interesting.
what's that?
so we have two previous bequests, much smaller amounts. I think we have like $70,000 left between those two bequests. And they just sit there. They do not get their interest income back to become principal. So and that's what I think we were wanting with the 2.7 is,
Yeah,
you know, it'll earn the interest at whatever rate the city invests and gets. It's not like we're gonna invest it in some special way, but I think the idea is, can we capture its share of the
Yes.
interest
And
back to our?
and
principal?
John told me
Yeah.
just this week, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because that other money's been there a long time.
Yeah.
Should have made a
But
little
we
bit of
can't
money.
put it in something, I'm on another board, the board where my office is downtown, and we were talking about the money we have. Where it's sitting and where we can invest it, and I didn't realize now because interest rates are so high, even a 3-month CD, you're getting almost 5%.
That's what
The
they talked
cities,
about
I mean,
today,
we can probably
5%.
speak to how well, I mean, the city's
Pretty
doing
well
a pretty
invested.
good.
We
return.
use Western Asset Management
Mhm.
and Morgan Stanley. And I want to say that the rolling whatever is close to 5%.
That's what I was
But there's,
thinking.
there's all kinds of policies about, you can only, our policies only allow like 30% in corporate bonds. And it's only a certain grade of corporate bond, but
Mhm.
those do pretty well. And I think generally speaking, those are held to maturity. And then we got T-bills, and then there's also a money market fund, and there's a particular fund that's very liquid. I don't know, Sally, you might know, but I forget the name of it, but it's just like cash.
Mhm.
But overall, I think we're close to 5%.
Yeah, I mean,
at this
for conservative strategy,
Yeah.
they do pretty well.
Yes.
And we can't move those funds into something.
Well, I could talk to John about it. I mean, that they are earning interest. It's just not going back to the principal.
Oh, I see.
It's just going into
Are
the
they in a
general
separate,
fund.
are they in a separate account somewhere?
Yes.
A separate bank account?
No. They're just part of the city's pool of money.
Ah,
Um,
that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this was just never discussed, before. And we just never discussed it, but then when we realized, oh, we're gonna have $2.7 million, well, that's different, that if we're gonna sit on that for 3 years, 4 years. Let's let that grow and keep that for us, not just put it back into the city's, general fund.
Right, so John says
That's great.
the interest gets allocated among the
Yeah.
funds in proportion. to
That's
that.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for following up with that, because that's definitely been on my mind too. That's great.
And then, okay, then I lied, I do have a comment. I went to, Janet Braun's open house on Sunday for her district, but she invited everybody in the city. And I just want to say Janet, talked about the library, so that was very nice, so thank you. That was, so your comments about the library,
Yeah,
we
no,
appreciate it.
but I think people are excited. I think as you go through this process, you'll get a lot of excitement.
Yeah, so it's always good to, bring up, like in your Hayward thing about, we have to talk the same and be consistent. How, like in your neighborhood, those people might not know about what's going on, so we gotta be consistent in all these different districts. We gotta just, talk about the library in the same way, so it was good, so thank you. Friends of the library. Ellen.
Hi, so we had our meeting this afternoon, so it's been a long day, so hopefully it's fairly short, but our nominating committee has met. It's nice that there are newer members, and so they have friends that are interested, so we actually have a lot of interest in joining the board, and we may not have quite as many board positions as people who are interested, but we're hoping to maybe find committees that they can be on. So what we're doing is we're going to have a bylaw review. It got postponed because one of the people who wanted to sit on it was out of the country or out of town. So we're going to review the bylaws and maybe restructure again. We kind of do this every couple of years, our board positions, to maybe fit some of these people that would like to take over. Because I am not going to be president again. So hopefully they can find somebody. So our proposed budget was proposed today, and there was quite a bit of discussion. Bianca was on that call along, and so that will be voted on in our December meeting and then adopted at our annual meeting. So it's moving along, and our new CFO has really got some great ideas, and she's a former banker and is just very sharp with our budget and sharper than I could ever be. She's on it. So our friends holiday luncheon is December 7th at 12 o'clock at Calvary Presbyterian in the Fellowship Hall. So you're all going to be invited, and you'll all be receiving an invitation soon. So if you can join us, we hope you will do so. Our membership drive is going. It's not as strong as last year. We have currently 198 members compared to last year of 265. Right now, roughly about $20,458.76. But our CFO is saying that we are actually doing well with overall money because of, and I'll get to that bookstore and everything else. So again, please spread the word about our wonderful library. Please join be a member if you haven't. And today, Kevin O'Neill sat outside. I was thinking it's kind of cold and dark, but he sat from 4 to 6. I don't know what happened, but he was promoting Friends membership, the bookstore, the holiday book sale, and restoration concerts.
I didn't have time to go out.
Yeah.
I wanted to go out and see how it was going.
Yeah, so he was there. So we're happy about that. He was doing outreach. So the bookstore is running really smoothly. They have made $36,500 to date. And what's really doing really well is the eBay book sales. They sold one Stephen King book for $950. These are books that we would have probably given away, not given away, but put on. Yes. And then they sold another set of 3 Stephen King books, and they're saying they're not like signed or anything for $330.
Are they rare or what would you just?
I didn't, did she?
Their first
First edition.
and then 950 was signed.
Okay.
Yeah. So in 3 months, they brought in 500,000, wouldn't that be nice? $5,000. And it's just one person. They don't really want us to go out promoting it because we only have one person who is the book chair doing it. So that's pretty amazing in 3 months to bring in that. So if you're interested, the holiday book sale is December 1st through the 3rd. You can have early admission if you're a Friends member at the $20 level, and it has to be done by the day before. So the concerts are doing really well, and the season tickets are on sale still, and you can purchase at door for $25. And the next concert is November 19th, and it's a new Hollywood String Quartet, if you've ever seen them. And I heard some news today. I'm hoping it's the truth that they may have a fire for the Steinway. They have some interest. Last meeting, the Friends agreed on a price span that we would
No lower
than. And they have a plan in place where they're hoping that with the sale of the piano, some local donations, that there will be enough money in that fund to, because right now they're renting. And it would maybe cover all the rentals they said for the rest of their existence. I mean, so we'll see if that truly happens, but that's good news because right now there's a lot of pianos sitting in this room here. So we're hoping they finally realize they should be in the piano business, I guess. So, and our communications is great. We have her name's Roseanne, and so she's working on and presented some new logos for the Friends because ours is pretty complicated and hard to print. Instagram has really taken off. It's, there's music attached to the restoration concerts. The newsletter, 61% open rate, which is huge. And our social media growth is reached almost to like 2%, which we were getting no growth. So she's just doing a great job. We always welcome news articles if anybody wants to put things in. I know the library's doing it now. And this, if you saw this newsletter, it was really colorful and the photos are great of our auction. And we can follow the Friends at the Friends of South Pass, SOPAS Library. But I just have to say, I'm just so excited about all the changes, this new younger generation, which typically, if you know anything about Friends boards, they're not usually younger people who are on it. And so they have kind of just taken over, it's lovely, it's wonderful. And I'm really excited
How
about
big is the
what's,
board? How many seats on the board?
we have, there's 13 board positions, but yeah, per our bylaws, we have to have certain ones, but other ones we can change. And then we have the committee, the restoration concerts have their own committee. The bookstore has a steering committee. And so it's just really, it's great to see some movements. And I always say, like, if I stay around again, I have my own biases and we don't grow that way. We just need people to move on. And so it's really, for me, it seems pretty exciting. These new things. Oh, they're working on the website. They have ideas. Sally's going to love this with the storage and getting all our documents in one place.
Right.
And so things that we haven't been, Sally tried really hard to get that taken care of. But sometimes we're like the Titanic, we move pretty slow. Anyway, that's my report. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good meeting. They are really good. They're very engaged.
Yes.
A lot of dialogue going on.
They're all, South Pasadena, these couple are South Pasadena graduates. They're in their early 30s.
Yeah, so it's nice.
Yeah.
And I just, I was there also on Zoom. And I just thought, Janet's idea or the restoration, concert idea for the piano was fabulous. Just renting it was a great idea. And then I love that Kevin, volunteered to sit out front. So.
Sit out front, for a couple hours.
Yeah. And then back to,
I have nothing else.
all right. And no other public comments then? So then, with no further items or comments from staff and or board members, any other comments from anybody? Then I will now adjourn the meeting, and it's at 7:55.
Yay.
And our next meeting will be, December 14th. Thank you, everybody, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.